Welcome to the Black Belt Business Podcast. My name is Matthew Brenner, and today I'm with Stan Lee. And if you're on Facebook, you'll know him as the yacht guy, the guy who's always on
Yeah,
boats,
God.
traveling around. But he obviously has been in the martial arts world for a really long time. And if you're thinking like, hey, my school could really use a redevelopment or rebirth when it comes to character development and how you teach it in your schools, that's that's what we're going to talk about in today's episode, and that's what you're going to learn. So if you're thinking, hey, I want to be more than just a martial arts school that just teaches martial arts, and you want to have more character development in your school, this episode is for you. Or if you've done that for a really long time and maybe it's gone a little stale, this is going to be the episode for you. So Stan, thank you so much for coming on here today. And can you give us a little bit of background about your martial arts, how you got to where you are right now?
Absolutely. Well, as a martial arts guy, I've always been primarily self-defense focused, but I knew when it was time to create a successful business that I had to balance that with character development. So I teach a mixed martial arts based self-defense course. We also have a huge transported after school program, and all of that has been made stronger by the character development systems that we've developed uh, in, in partnership with my wife. I'm more of a martial arts guy and a business guy, as I had business experience. I guess that's probably the luckiest thing I can say about my business journey is that I came into the martial arts industry already with a background in business and sales rather than trying to pick those skills up after developing martial arts skills. And my wife's background is in entertainment and education. And it was our partnership that really brought the character development aspect of what we do to the forefront.
Okay, very cool. So what was your experience with business and marketing or sales? What were you doing?
Well, I graduated from Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University here in Daytona Beach, Florida, and with a degree in business with a degree in aeronautical studies with a concentration in management. And the first job I actually took out of college was as a stockbroker. I was a financial advisor for 2 years. That was very sales heavy, 100% commission based, 12 hours a day talking on a phone is the best way I could describe it.
Mhm.
And through that process, I went through a huge amount of sales training. So back in the early 90s, things like Anthony Robbins, things like Think and Grow Rich, so on and so forth, these things were all something that was fed to me well before I got anywhere close to thinking that I could actually make a living teaching martial arts. I probably would have chose this as my job, but when I was a kid, there were no professional martial arts instructors. That industry didn't really exist yet. So once I figured out that I could make the living that I wanted because I didn't want to be poor in martial arts, it was full speed ahead.
So do you think, I'm curious about your motivation. Do you think you have more motivation not to be poor or motivation to have money? Like, is it more like the negative, like you want to avoid the negative, or more about seeking the positive?
Well, it's at this point in my life, it's about free time more than anything else. When I didn't come from wealthy beginnings, and I remember growing up definitely feeling like, okay, I'm not going to stay in this little podunk town. I'm not gonna make some of the same mistakes that maybe my parents did, or so on and so forth. And so I had that work ethic from the beginning driving me forward.
Yeah, I think for me personally, and it probably changes throughout your life, is what it sounds like, but
Hmm.
I feel like I am more driven by I don't want to be broke more than I'm like I do want to be rich. Like I'm always like
Hmm.
the negative definitely scares me a lot more. The thing I always think about is like I don't want to have to be an old man who works at Walmart to survive.
I, I,
Right.
I can definitely understand that. And a lot of what I did with my business was to make it as recession proof as possible. I'm coming up on October 4th. We're having a big event here for 30 years in business with my school. And in those 30 years, I have seen real ups and downs, whether it be the 2008 financial crisis, various wars and other things that affected the economy in different ways. And I had seen some hard times a few times, and I really decided that I was going to build something recession proof if I was going to depend on it.
Okay. So how exactly do you make your martial arts school recession proof?
Well, there's a few things you can do. I am a huge fan of the after school martial arts model, and it's primarily because you're in the business of providing needs instead of wants. If people have jobs, they need a safe place for their kids to go after school, and it's such after school martial arts when done well is such a head and shoulders experience above the other aftercare possibilities and summer camp possibilities. We provide so much more that we can charge a premium price, but it's still a great value. And I actually, in the very beginning, I started my school in '95. I started my after school program in '97. And for a while, I kind of operated like most people did, where it was an add on, just a little extra revenue source to our regular evening classes. And then when it got to the point that, like in 2006 or so, my evening classes were doing so well, I felt like it was too much trouble. And I actually farmed it out to a daycare center across the street for them to pick up the kids and just have them walk them over to me for classes in the afternoon. So I was still getting them revenue as students, but eliminated all the headaches of providing it. And then when the 2008 financial crisis happened, I'm in a little tourist town called Ormond Beach, Florida. And we have two industries in our town, tourism and home building. And that's basically it. Okay. You can imagine when the real estate crisis hit and people stopped building homes, what happened to a majority of my student body, right? They were all going to where they were building. They were moving out of state, whatever it was. Florida was really hard hit at that time. And that's when I really decided that I was going to go back into the after school business. And I wasn't just going to make it an add on, I was going to make it my primary focus. And so we went through our school and audited it and basically said if there's a spare bit of space, we're going to use this to service after schoolers. We don't need an office. We don't need a pro shop. We don't need any space for anything except how to service more after schoolers. And so our business has been that way. So I kind of operate the opposite way most school owners do. My after school program is our primary business, and my evening classes are an add on. I do that for fun so I can train with some adults in the evenings. It's not really our primary business model.
Hmm. So for people who follow you on social media, you're always out on a boat, or is that considered a yacht? Yacht, right? I don't know the
Yes, well,
difference in.
a yacht is a pleasure boat, right? It's a 48-foot, 25-foot wide cruising catamaran is what I have. It's four bedrooms, two bathrooms, kitchen, living room. It's a floating four-bedroom apartment, basically.
Yeah, okay. And I didn't even know, based on the surface level on social media, that you still operate a school. I just
Yes,
thought you're retired and you go on this boat. I'm like, that's cool. I love that. And I'm sure a lot of people have that same perception.
I think so. I think some people think I do consider myself semi-retired, but I still do own the school. And what we've kind of found is that like 5 to 6 months on, 5 to 6 months off, or sometimes 3 months on, 3 months off, depending on how things are going, is the ideal lifestyle for us. When you're on a yacht in the Caribbean in a third world country, it is glamping to a degree. Okay. So after a while, you may decide that you're interested more in civilization. Maybe you miss your favorite restaurants or your family or so on and so forth. So we fly back and forth. The yacht is currently in Grenada and we're flying back to it October 29th. But yes, I still own and operate our school. It's more successful than ever, and it's great to be able to come back to it
So
after we spend a little time traveling.
cool. So how often do you get calls from the school operator or the after school operator?
You
Is
know,
it just two different people or?
almost never, almost never, almost never. Yeah, our systems are in place. We do monitor what's going on. Obviously, I have a big fan of Spark, and with Spark, I can see all the metrics. I see that what the collections look like. I can monitor the SMSs and the emails and everything else. So I still have my finger on the pulse, but most of the time, as far as actual operations, I have very little to do with the day-to-day operations of the school as well on the yacht.
Okay, got it. Uh,
Um,
and then how did you get to that point, or how did you incentivize your team? Are they incentivized based on revenue level? Like, how exactly do you get them to run mostly independently of you?
we did at one time offer a lot of different incentive packages, including bonuses based on gross profit and so on and so forth. But we've gotten to the point now where we just pay an above average hourly rate. and work on it that way. It's so systematized. It's not as stressful. Like I said, the with the after school program, our whole business model is based on we will enroll 20 new kindergartners every year, and that's all we really have to do. And we can be a profitable business just based on that, let alone what we're doing the rest of the year.
Mm.
Because we almost never lose a student, unlike regular evening class students where you're getting phone calls saying, well, it's summertime, or you got phone calls and it's saying that, oh, little Johnny doesn't want to come anymore. If mom and dad need to go to work, they're going to after school. So we almost never lose students. So retention, when you have a retention based business, it's not as stressful. You don't feel like, oh my God, if I don't enroll 20 people this month, we're going to be losing money. We don't really have those kind of problems.
Hmm. So would you consider, is the person who runs the after school program, do they also run the martial arts classes? They do
We
both?
have, yeah, we have, I have one school manager, but we have staff that kind of stay in certain, we have instructional staff, but our after school program, unlike a lot of other schools, these kids are doing martial arts every single day. We teach 4 full after school classes a day. Okay. So it's not like some of these other programs where they have after school and maybe the kid does martial arts. That's not my unique selling proposition. The whole idea of our after school program is that we're doing martial arts and everything is built around martial arts and the character development aspects of it. And that's what makes us head and shoulders above all our competition and why we're sold out all the time instead of having to desperately chase people. We usually have a waiting list rather than worrying about if we got enough enrollments.
Is it okay if I ask some numbers, like how much you
Sure,
charge for after school
sure,
program,
but
how many
I
students
do.
you want to have?
It's one thing, it's funny when you have a program like yours that is, being watched around the world. It is really funny when people try to talk numbers and then compare numbers to other people. My town, the median income in my town is $37,000 a year. I looked up the median income of Cinnamonville, or where Cinnamon's son, where it says you're located, and it's like 120,000, right? So it's like huge difference in the amount of numbers that you could be doing up there, probably huge difference in the costs that you're experiencing. Our school does around $60,000 a month.
And how much of
And
that is after school versus martial arts?
we run 80 to 100 after schoolers at just under $100 a week. Okay, so probably about 40,000 of it or so is after school, and maybe 20,000 of it is additional besides tuition. So it's not just evening class tuition, but it's selling snacks, selling equipment, and so on and so forth, right? As far as, but we average about a $60,000 a month bill.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. And obviously, context matters. Like it's regional. Like
Yes,
you could live in New York and make 150K a year and be broke.
exactly,
Or
exactly,
California or something.
and
So
that's
it's
why
not
I
the
think
same.
median income is such a good metric to compare. So many people on social media like to say, "Oh well, what are you charging? What is your school gross?" They're really not figuring out how much money you're putting in your pocket by doing that. I
Right.
mean, I have 4,000 square feet, and my rent was recently raised about 20%. I'm paying a whole $4,000 a month for that space.
Does that include CAM, like triple net, or is that
Yes, that's
okay?
everything. Yeah.
That's
Okay.
great.
So yeah, I can see the smoke coming out of your ears as you're doing the numbers in your head.
Yeah,
But
I mean,
yeah, so
4K is
we're
pretty
we're we're
good.
quite profitable. That's how I can manage to afford to spend 6 months out of the year on a yacht.
Yeah, very cool. So when you're away, do you just like do you have the school operator like send money to your personal bank account or do you just transfer it yourself? Like how do you actually manage that?
No, no, we do all our payroll online. My wife does the payroll, so my wife still actually every other Friday goes into it and does the payroll, and I still
Okay.
take a still take a salary.
Okay. All right, cool. And then the 6 months that you are in the school, like what's your role then? Are you teaching classes? Are you watching the after school kids? Like what are you doing?
Usually what I do, and I still manage our marketing. I still do our Facebook posts. I still talk to prospects occasionally through text, but I structure everything mostly. The two biggest times for us are the beginning of the school year and the beginning of summer. So what I tend to do is I'll be here, like we're leaving in October, and I'll be back probably mid March. Okay, and then when we get back, then in May, in April and May, I'll be preparing us for our summer camp enrollments. And then when I'm here now, I'm focusing mostly on building the after school program. So I come in, those are like the two crucial seasonal times for our program when people are making decisions about enrollments. So it's back to school and then it's beginning of summer that I'm always here.
Hmm.
So I feel that my staff needs some extra backup. I may actually teach introductory lessons if I have to, although I've got a staff to do that. But if we have to double up on them or something along those lines, I'll be there for that. But most of what I'm doing too is a lot of staff training, a lot of, I also still, black belt testing is still something that I kind of save for myself. So we usually schedule our black belt tests around that time when I'm there and structure that way. But other than that, I just like being at the school, whether it's jumping out on the mat to teach or just talking to parents. It's pretty amazing what happens in a small town when you've been teaching for 30 years. The 6 degrees of separation is like a real thing,
Hmm.
right? In that everywhere I go in our town, someone there has been touched by our business in one way or another, right? We've taught them or we taught their brothers or sisters, and it's an amazing thing. I'll walk into the school on a regular basis, and my staff will be doing an introductory lesson, and I'll come in to introduce myself, and the parent will stand up and bow and say, "Mr. Stan, I don't know if you remember me, but when I was 7, I used to come here,"
Yeah.
right? So it's a really an amazing thing, and it's I mean, you talk about 5-star Google reviews are great, but when a parent says, "I want my child to have the same skills you gave me when I was a kid," there's no better testimonial than that.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And obviously, you're in there for a long time. You're gonna get the multiple generations, I think,
Mm-hmm.
which is always super
Mm-hmm.
fun. So let's transition a little bit because I want to know. I know you have a character development program that martial arts schools can plug and play into their school. So we're gonna get into what that is and what you offer. But before we even do that, like, what do martial arts schools get wrong about character?
Well, I think the biggest problem is I don't think any martial arts school out there that has any reasonable amount of success does not focus on character development in some way, whether it be making promises in their marketing, right, and doing some sort of a mat chat or mentioning in their enrollment processes, talking about how the young student is going to develop better, self-discipline and respect and confidence and perseverance and so on and so forth. All these things, it's pretty obvious, and there wouldn't be a martial arts industry if the character development aspects of martial arts training hadn't come to the public's eye. I mean, it was really the Karate Kid movie that people saw, wow, Daniel LaRusso really became a man through this process. I want my child to have those kind of life lessons, right? Mr. Miyagi was such a pivotal figure. So I think everybody is talking about it, but delivering that information in a way that especially young children can absorb it, I think a lot of them are getting it completely wrong. And in most cases, what they're actually doing is they're not even teaching character development. They're producing what we call character development theater, which means they pull all the kids over for a mat chat in earshot of the parents and they talk about character development, but they're not necessarily making real changes in a young group of children who maybe aren't that verbal. I often describe it this way. Imagine you were teaching a front kick to a 4-year-old. Would you take that 4-year-old over to the wave master and say, okay, I want you to lift your knee up until your thigh is parallel with the floor, and then I want you to flex your quadricep, extend your leg forward, and strike with the bottom of your foot to the bag right there? The child would be looking at you with their head cocked sideways, right? Like my dog looks at me, wondering what you're talking about. But if you walk up to the bag, you pick up your knee in a good chamber and you fire out that front kick and you say, okay, try that, they can copy you, right? Because they learn visually and from our example in that age range. And in my opinion, of course, that 3.5 to 6-year-old age range is the most important demographic in your school. That there is nothing more important than that. And if you want to keep that group, those parents are very interested in their kids developing better focus and discipline and respect, and they're pulling their hair out trying to figure out how to teach it. But if all you're doing is getting a verbal mat chat occasionally at the end of the school, you don't have a system in place, and you're not teaching them visually, you're only teaching them verbally, they have a real difficult time wrapping their mind around an abstract concept, right? I mean, what is perseverance to a 4 year old, right? They're just a year away from figuring out whether something is good by taste. You know what I mean? So it's real important. So the way we overcame that problem was my wife's background in children's entertainment. My wife is an ex-Fox television actress and a theatrical actress, and she toured the country doing morality plays for a company called Covenant Players. She toured the United States and Canada as a professional actress and producer. And when I first talked to her about how I want to hold these kids' attention and how she did it, I mean, she was also the original Fox Kids Club hostess. Okay,
Hmm.
so in between the cartoons on Fox Television, it was my wife. She went by her stage name Belisa back then, that she was the one saying, hey, don't change that channel. Wait till you see what Tommy on the Power Rangers is going to do next, right? She was an on-air talent that his whole job was to hold the kids' attention and keep their attention so that, of course, Fox could show them commercials, right? So my wife made me a flip chart with some animated characters. She just drew freehand. She's a talented person, and it was an example of a little character choosing between candy or fruit and vegetables. And I would bring that visual aid out, and I would ask the kids, "Hey, what's going on in this picture? What's this little guy, Hershey? What's this? What's he thinking about here? Oh, he's thinking. So what do you think? What choice should he make? Right?" And when it was visual in front of them being acted out by characters, the kids could pick up on the characters, on their facial expressions. They could pick up on the situations they found themselves in, and they would try to copy the character. And we found, wow, this is really effective. And then we decided to produce full-on cartoons. So we produced 2 full-length cartoons with these characters, teaching the benefits of martial arts training through these animated characters that visually in the cartoon go through little life situations and rely on their martial arts instructor as the source of character development in their lives, where they solve problems based on his advice. And we started off trying to actually produce that for television, but we found out when we pitched the cartoons to Nickelodeon and the Cartoon Network that they were more interested in fart noises than they were teaching anybody anything. They weren't really interested in education. They were just interested in entertainment and making sure the kids didn't change the channel. So we then decided to take these animations and build them into a character development curriculum. The original curriculum was posters that we gave you subscription to and sent you 4 posters a month that would talk about a theme of the month and give you 4 different situations where the characters are acting out perseverance, for example. And then we went from that was what we considered the blockbuster model. We were actually sending people DVDs to the Netflix model, where it became a digital download and you put these visual aids up on a TV screen in your school. And now it's gotten to Harry version 3.0, which is it's basically a full-on PowerPoint presentation on character development with these cartoon characters to draw them in and teach them life lessons. So it's incredibly effective in that younger age group to hold their attention and get them to actually copy the characters, change their behavior, and the martial arts school owner gets all the credit.
Hmm.
And that was a big burst of words. So
Yeah.
there
So
you
you
go.
you think the kids it resonates more with them because they can model the behavior of the cartoon characters over just like hearing someone explain
Well,
about how to have better discipline or something.
yes, especially just like I said, abstract concepts and big vocabulary words are a difficult thing for a 4, 5, and 6 year old to wrap their mind around. But when they, example, if I show you self-discipline and I show you a poster and it shows the little character cleaning up his room and we talk about that. Okay, so that's one example. And then I show another example of self-discipline. Here's Harry, he's working on his homework without his mom telling him to. And every time we go through these different situations visually, we can draw their attention. And There were studies done on this. I'm sure you're familiar with Malcolm Gladwell.
Yes, sir.
Okay, have you ever read Blink?
Yeah, yeah. I've
Okay.
read most of his books. Are great.
Okay, well, in one of his books, he talks about Sesame Street did some A/B testing where they were trying to determine what would hold children's attention and what would actually get them to uh, get that lesson that they were trying to teach, whether it was ABCs or math or whatever it was Sesame Street was teaching that day. What got them to retain that information the best? And they tried the fantasy characters, the puppets. They tried the human beings, and they also tried a human being interacting with a fantasy character. And that was actually the format that like doubled the retention of the lesson.
Hmm.
So the kids were fascinated with the idea, how is this puppet interacting with a human being, right? And then they also talked about in that book, if you're familiar with Blue's Clues, I don't know if you have any young children yourself, but Blue's Clues is all about the interaction of Blue and his human partner who kind of plays the narrator, right? So our mat chats are designed so that we have the picture on the screen and then we ask leading questions to the kids about what's going on in the picture that gets them focused on what the characters are doing and what is going on, what isn't going on. And that interactivity, instead of being preached to, is a huge part of retention of the information.
And how do you think that resonates with the parents differently than having some mat chat that's like a story about a kid who overcomes some difficult challenge?
Well,
Like why is it different?
there's a few ways. Number one, the way our program is set up, we also have these two full length cartoons, and we have my wife's written 11 children's books that are for sale and on display at our school. So our kids look at these characters as celebrities. Okay, when they see, let me just show you 1 second. When they see and read a book like this, that's a genuine Amazon bestseller, okay? When they see what that character is doing, it's a much more powerful thing than anything we can just come up with in their imaginations, right? When they've watched the cartoons and read the books and they have a tattoo of Harry on their arm, it becomes a very powerful thing. I know I once watched a parent complaining on Facebook saying that they could ask their child 100 times to clean their room and the child will do nothing. But if Dora the Explorer says that she needs a kidney, they're running around the house with a scalpel. Okay. um, so yeah, media is very powerful. These kids are used to absorbing animated characters and what they do. And half the time when kids are behaving badly and parents are complaining about it, it's because they let them watch SpongeBob and they're bouncing around the floor just copying what they see. That's what they do. They copy us. That's the way they learn at that age. And if you can give them something positive to copy, that they can relate to, right? Our little character, Harry, here is going through his first introductory lesson in this book, right? So he meets his instructor for the first time, learns a bunch of cool things, and he has trouble paying attention and he has trouble standing still, just like them. So by creating characters that they can relate to, it's much more powerful than just a story, right? And the visual aspect is so important. I know that the biggest difference is that rather than just showing the parents, hey, you're keeping your commitment to teaching the things your marketing promised, right? That it's not a bait and switch where I didn't say, hey, I'm going to teach your child to be more disciplined, and then they were just doing traditional forms up and down the floor, and I can't see how those things relate to each other, right? In the parent's mind, is that not only will they, you'll get the same effect as doing a verbal mat chat, but the kids will actually change their behavior. They will go home and clean their room based on what they saw. And when they actually start changing their behavior, the parents are definitely like, I think I'm really into this martial arts stuff. This is much better than I expected. So it's a matter of getting the children to take action and actually make changes. And we found this to be the most powerful tool to make that actually happen.
Hmm. And then do you explain to the parents why you teach it that way or why you have the characters? Like, do you explain to them what you explain to
We
me, or do
we
you kind
do we do in our introductory lesson, and our introductory lesson for little kids is basically exactly the same thing as the Harry's First Martial Arts Lesson DVD, which is
of,
now, of course, now a digital file. It's basically The same introductory lesson we teach taught by a 7-foot animated lizard so they pay attention to it.
Mm.
So what we actually do is after teaching an introductory lesson in a child in that age range, we say, hey, I know that we've gone over a lot of material in a very short period of time. And, little Johnny here is only 4 years old, and he's going to retain a certain amount of that. But we have some special tools we developed to help him internalize some of the life lessons and the things that we talked about. So we're going to email you or text you a link to this full-length cartoon that little Johnny can watch over and over and over again that will reinforce all of the lessons that we talked about, our student creed, what those words stand for and mean, and how exciting it's going to be when he comes back for his second lesson and earns his white belt, and it's going to be the greatest thing that ever happened to him.
Mm.
So that's part of our onboarding process in kids in that age range. Because if you have any young children yourself, if you buy them an animated program, they don't just watch it once. They'll watch the same one 1,000 times in a row until they have it memorized, because they get a little dopamine hit every time they watch that cartoon and they remember something about the last time they watched it. Right? That's the way their brains work. So by including all this in, and then we have our first match at in class, and they look up at the TV screen and see the same character that they watched in that introductory cartoon, and they're going, "That's Harry. He's my friend." Right? And all of a sudden it's the match chats themselves become like the next episode of Game of Thrones to us.
Mm.
They can't wait to see what's going on in Harry's life and what he's up to next and what challenge he's overcoming, because they're already in that zone and they already have a familiarization with the character. So it's all systematized in that way. And then they get homework, they get coloring sheets that have the visual aid baked into them so that they're at home, so the parents can then reinforce, hey, what are you working on? Oh, I'm working on my coloring sheet. Oh, what's Harry doing in the coloring sheet? Oh, he's doing his homework without being told. Wow, he really does have self-discipline. It's structured and, above anything else, getting back to your question, if you're just doing a mat chat occasionally because you happen to remember it and it's not systematized, I mean, all the things I've been describing is a system in place that's with our onboarding process and our day-to-day operations that is drilling those character development lessons in a visual way day in and day out. It's not like I just decided this week I'm going to talk about self-discipline today, and tomorrow I'm going to talk about concentration, and then maybe I don't talk about anything for 3 weeks. If you don't have a system in place with all the resources necessary and it doesn't get done, you're going to have a lot of people quit when mom says, I thought this was about discipline, and all he does is kick the air. And I don't understand how those things are related.
So you have to like make a connection with the parents. Like, hey, here's what we do, and here's how it's going to help, and here's why it helps.
Absolutely. I mean, onboarding in that way is so, so important, because if you don't fully explain how things work, people are going to feel like it's a bait and switch. They're going to feel like I paid for one thing, the advertisement promised me this, and now I have this, and I don't really understand how it works. And one of the hugest things, of course, that has to be brought up is just that you're not going to be a black belt tomorrow, and this takes time, right? I think one of the largest disappointments I think that parents have is they think that we're going to teach them how to be disciplined little martial artists in the first month, right? So if we're pre-framing these things in a reasonable amount of time, I think you're gonna keep students longer across the board.
Yeah, I really like that. And I think the idea of like being from the beginning, like from when they first onboard, even if you send, like, we don't do this, honestly, but now I'm thinking about it. Like, there should be some sort of email each week that explains, hey guys, here's what we're learning this week. Here's why we're learning this, and here's how it's going to help you. And like, yeah, we might explain that somewhat in the class, but I think having like an email that parents can read like quickly, that they could, that's because the connection might be obvious to us, but it's not
Yes.
necessarily obvious to them.
How many parents are in the gallery looking at their phones and
Pay attention. Maybe
they
they'll
didn't
read
know
more.
getting through to busy parents with any message, whether it be a marketing message or a retention message, is difficult. And that's why a lot, like, we have special digital as part of our system. We have digital e-postcards that have our animated character wishing them a happy birthday or asking them where they've been, because mom may not answer all her emails, but when little Johnny gets an email, he wants to look at it, right? He doesn't get email very often. So yeah, trying to keep the focus there, is everyone is awash in everyone else trying to get a hold of them, whether it be social media, whether it be television. We're all bombarded by messages constantly, and a very small percentage gets through.
Hmm. Yeah, you're absolutely right. So I think like not I think we got him in multiple fronts, right? In
Hmm. Hmm.
person, through email, and not just depend on them to be paying attention in that moment. The other thing I want to know is how do you do this differently? You talked about 3 or 4 or 5 year olds. What about a 10-year-old or a 12-year-old or a teenager?
You can do a verbal mat chat with a child at that age because he actually speaks English, right? So more synapses have connected. He can wrap his mind around an abstract concept. So it's definitely different. We don't use the obviously the cartoon characters and such when we're talking about 8, 9, 10, 11, 12-year-olds, right? We have a separate system that we call Black Belt Principles that has more visual. We still use visual aids, but they're more graphics with models and actors, and we talk about situations that are a little bit more mature than what we do in the little kids class. But my main focus is that little kids class. I mean, I'm sure you're familiar with the concept of a lifetime value of a customer,
Mhm.
right? So our whole business model, like I said, is designed to attract 3, 4, 5, and 6 year olds and keep them in our after school program until they graduate middle school and then have them in our evening classes after that. And our business model is designed to have that process go through with a minimal loss in maximum retention. So building those habits early is much, much more important. It is very difficult to change the behavior of a teenager. Sometimes you can inspire them, but a lot of times those habits are built in and it's going to take a long, muscle memory, 5,000, 5,000, 10,000 reps on something to put it into muscle memory. If you've got a child that's been over and over and over again making bad choices, it's become a habit. So
Mm.
we really focus on getting them in that very early age when we can influence them and build good habits so that by the time they're teenagers, we don't have to worry about what kind of moral choices they make.
Okay, great. Thanks for sharing that. And I guess for people who want to find out more about your program or what it offers, how do they actually find you?
Well, they can definitely talk to me on Facebook. I'm always on social media. You can go to, we're doing a transition of some URLs right now, but you can find more information at www.harryandfriends.net. That is in the process. We're switching some hosting over. We just went to a new format called, or a new portal called Learn World that is incredibly rich in what it can do compared to our old regular website that we had. So Learn World is a huge gain in functionality for delivering all the various bits and pieces of the character development curriculum.
Cool. That's great. All right. So if you want to learn more about this, so you can have a better character development program. So you're not just spewing things that are not going to resonate with a 4 and 5 year old. Make sure to reach out to Stanley on Facebook or check out his website. And if you're having trouble with the website, just send him a message on Facebook. I'm sure he's going to help you as you transition over. All right. So some quick rapid fire questions before we free up, just for fun. Is it cool if I shoot some questions at you?
Feel free.
All right. What's one weapon we should get rid of in the martial arts world?
One weapon.
Yeah.
One weapon. Are we talking figuratively,
No, like a martial arts
or
weapon. Yeah,
we're
like
talking
common.
about a martial arts weapon?
Yeah.
A weapon we should get rid of. As a self-defense guy, I'm not a fan of losing any tools in my toolbox. Probably out of all the tools that are available, the sai is probably least practical in today's world.
Hmm.
If I had to talk about traditional kabodo, if you ask me the opposite question, everyone should teach the bow staff because they're everywhere. Everywhere you are, there's a bow staff somewhere close by. If you
Mm.
can just imagine.
Yeah, bow staffs everywhere whenever I walk the street. That's
Yes. Uh-huh.
all right. Next one. Who would be on your martial arts Mount Rushmore?
First of all, for me as a mixed martial artist, Bruce Lee would have the number one spot and everybody else would be underneath him. It wouldn't just be an even row. It would
Yeah.
be Bruce Lee up here and then maybe a bunch of other people underneath. but he was my original inspiration when I was younger. I unfortunately was gifted in. You're probably familiar with this. You're from New Jersey originally.
Yeah, Philly,
Okay,
but yeah,
Philly.
close.
Well, Hey, I was born in Bucks County Hospital.
Okay.
Okay, I was born in Philly.
Yeah, yeah,
All right, and we have a state language there called sarcasm.
yep.
And that was the reason I got involved in martial arts to begin with. Is I would say things to people and they would try to hit me,
Hmm.
and I decided I wanted to learn how to protect myself. And watching Bruce Lee's movies and then reading his books was my original inspiration. But
I love that.
definitely Bruce Lee. Then I would probably put underneath him people like Chuck Norris, who were also early adopters of different martial arts. Definitely Elio and Carlson Gracie. Who else?
I think that covers it. I think that covers it. I think that we need
Yeah,
four, right?
probably. There you
So I think
go.
we got it covered. Chuck Norris, Bruce Lee, and the Gracies.
Hmm.
All right, cool. Next one. What would your walkout song be if you were a UFC fighter?
I'm a big fan of Iron Man's entrance in the Avengers movie.
Okay.
When he shows up and they're confronting Loki and AC/DC Shoot to Thrill is playing in the background, definitely would want to take one from Iron Man's playbook and use that.
Love that. Okay. Shoot to thrill, ACDC. Got it. Very
Hmm.
cool. All right. One more. What's your least favorite part about being on the yacht?
Okay.
Maybe it was
Are
something
you
that people wouldn't expect or
are you
know.
familiar with the concept of island time?
No.
Okay. Island time is a phrase where in the islands, if you talk to someone, you say, "Hey, I want to come by and have you do some work on this or whatever," and then you show up and they're not there, and "Oh, I meant tomorrow." As a business owner who really focuses on customer service, bad customer service drives me absolutely crazy. And if you're in the Caribbean and you walk into a beach bar, for example, and you think that the waitress is going to walk right over to you and get your drink order and get it in and get your drinks out in a reasonable manner, you have expectations that are not going to be fulfilled. It's definitely the worst thing about it is trying to actually just really bad customer service, which is just a pet peeve of mine as an entrepreneur.
Yeah. But a good customer service can make the biggest difference ever. Like good customer service can overcome a lot of mistakes that people make. Like, you make a
Absolutely.
mistake or double charge someone, you have good customer service, you can
Absolutely.
overcome it. I was away for a couple weeks and I use a co-working space. So I could rent an office. And I walked in there and like within 3 minutes of me sitting down, the manager comes over. Hey man, I feel like I haven't seen you in a couple weeks. Like, where have you been? Everything good? And it was like maybe a 20-second conversation. But the
Hmm.
fact that he noticed and came and said something very quickly made me feel so loved and
Hmm.
warm that I was like,
Hmm.
"Ah, I really chose the right place. Right now, if
Hmm.
they double charge me or they do something wrong or the door's locked or the Wi-Fi's not working, I'm gonna be way more patient because like
Yes,
of how good that customer service was. I think it really matters.
absolutely.
So thank you so much for coming on here. My name is Matthew Brenner. If you have any questions or you want to learn how to grow your school organically, you can reach out to me, Matthew at wdojo.com. If you're interested in Stan Lee's services or you just want to hear advice or talk to him about island time or yacht issues you're having, he will respond at yacht time whenever he feels like it. So you can reach out to him. Thank you so much for listening. Bye, guys.